Welcome everybody to today's Friday webinar. I'm Trevor. I'm going to be your presenter, and we're talking eBay once again. Specifically, a topic here that comes up off and on when you get someone that you actually sell a product to, and they quote unquote buy it, but they don't actually pay you. I'm actually just curious for you guys who are here right now in the webinar live. Have you ever had that happen? Somebody buys the product, but you don't get paid. Either they don't pay just because they don't. Maybe they change their mind and they don't communicate with you, or they don't pay because they just change their mind and they do tell you about it. Or it turns out to be some kind of a scam or whatever. I'm curious if any of you guys have run into that problem before. I had one just come in today that I'll show you guys where somebody didn't pay. And I want to kind of talk to you about the process of how to handle that and how to handle it the right way, because there's definitely a right and a wrong way to take care of something like that. B, you said, yeah, you had it happen over the Christmas season a little bit. Yep, I saw that happen a little bit too. Yeah, were they just, you said where they do not pay, nor do they contact you. Yeah, like that happens. And I'll show you one today that I'm a little suspect of, but sometimes that'll happen. You'll get people commit to buy, but then they never pay you, and then nothing happens with the transaction. Kirk says, isn't there a setting you can make where they have to pay right away? Yes, there is, and we're going to talk about that. It forces people, they can't buy it unless they pay for it right on the spot. So that's something that we'll look at. Rick hasn't run into it. Vince several times. Yeah, so I mean it happens on and off. If it hasn't happened to you yet, I can almost guarantee it'll happen at some point. So we're going to kind of talk about that process. Let me show you one that showed up pretty recently that I'm a little suspect of. We're in one of my accounts right here. I'm going to zoom in on this so you guys can see this a little bit better. This is under my, if you see right here, this is under my sold section. Okay, you've got your selling section, and then you've got your specifically your sold section, and we're in the eBay My eBay section. If that makes sense. Here we are. We're looking at some sold items, and look at this one right here. The sale date was on the 21st. Today's the 23rd, so it's been a couple of days. It was sold for, whoops, let me go back. Sorry, I clicked on something I wasn't supposed to. It was sold for $19.99. And what you can see when you get to this section is you can actually take a look at the buyer, right? Like here's the buyer's, here's their user, their eBay username. It's Amanda Croft, CRAWF _ and then some weird letters and numbers. That's their username. Now you'll notice their feedback score here is a 0, which is the first thing that caught my attention, because I was like, okay, whenever I get a buyer who has a 0, it doesn't mean that they're not legit. It always makes me look and check out their account, especially if they haven't paid me yet. So you can see right here, I haven't been paid. In fact, they didn't ever even complete checkout. So you can put your mouse over these little icons here, and they'll tell you exactly what's happened on the transaction. All we know for sure is that this person, this Amanda Crawford or whoever she is, she came in and she bought the item, or she clicked buy it or buy now on my item, and then that's about all she did. She didn't finish checkout. She didn't pay me, and I can see that that's the case here. If she had, like, these little icons would light up, like the one here below that was sold on the 8th. You can see these little icons here. See how they've you know, they're darker. That means that the transaction has actually happened. So if I roll my mouse over it, I know it's kind of small for you guys to see, but it says paid on January 8th, 2015 to PayPal. That hasn't happened here. So when I saw that she hadn't paid, and I also saw she had a 0 feedback score, I decided to click on her account. Okay, you can click on her user ID, and it'll open up a new tab. And interestingly enough, this person, it says, is based in Australia. and they've been an eBay member since January 21st, 2015. So they have not been a member very long. In fact, they signed up for their account the same day they bought this item. That seems a little fishy to me. Now, I can't say that that's impossible, right? That happens a little bit. Somebody may sign up for their first eBay account and then go buy an item. So that doesn't indicate to me that this person is some sort of a scammer or whatever. But I do find it a little interesting that that same person didn't finish checkout or anything. Maybe hoping that I would send the item out without thinking about it. Because that happens sometimes. You actually do have some people out there on eBay that'll try to get away with that. I'm not saying it happens often, but you'll see it a little bit where they sort of look to take advantage of somebody who's newer on eBay. So they'll go out and they'll buy a product from maybe a newer eBay member that's selling something, and they don't pay for it, and they just kind of hope that maybe the person overlooks that or doesn't realize that and just sends out the product anyway. So I don't know if that's what's happening here. Maybe it's just a brand new person who doesn't really know how to use eBay that well, but the bottom line is, here it is, the item's been purchased, and I don't have payment for it. So I want to talk to you guys a little bit about what do you do at that point, what's the best course of action, and what do you do to prevent that in the future from happening? That's kind of what I want to go over. So, all right. Now let me show you sort of the process that I would do. The first thing I would do when somebody buys something and doesn't pay, give them some time first. Okay, so like don't jump all over them and start harping on them a day later if they haven't paid or checked out yet. Give them a couple of days. I remember there was an instance once where I had this happen that somebody didn't pay, and I just realized it, so I got on there and I sent them a quick message, which you can do right here. If you come right over here to More Actions, click on the little drop-down arrow, I can come up here and hit Contact Buyer, okay? And I can send them a message. Well, I just did that right away without thinking one day, and I think they had just bought the item like earlier in the day, and they just haven't paid for it yet. So I sent them this message, and they're like, and you know, I just asked them. I was like, "Hey, I saw you paid for an item, or saw you bought the item but hadn't paid for it yet. Why don't you pay for it and I'll get it shipped out?" That was basically the extent of the email. And they got back to me later, and they're almost like, "Well, wait, hold your horses. We're going to pay for it. I was just going to wait till a little bit later on today when I was home, you know, so I could just pay for it on my computer or whatever." So they were a little annoyed by me being so aggressive and reaching right out to them. So I would just caution you against that. I would give people a couple of days, and if they still haven't paid you after a couple of days, then I would reach out to the buyer. And in this case, I'm going to do this right here on the spot. I'm going to select Contact Buyer, and I'm going to send them a little message here. Right? Maybe they're new or whatever. So I'm going to send them this message. Let me zoom in so you can watch me as I type here. I'm going to say something like, "Hi there. We noticed you purchased," I'll say, "committed to buy this necklace, but never completed checkout or finalized payment." And so I'm going to try to sound not overly aggressive. You know, I'm going to give them the benefit of the doubt. I'm going to say something like, "Is there anything we can help you with? Question mark. Do you have any questions about the product? Question mark." So just give them the benefit of the doubt, and then I'll finish by saying something like, "When you're ready, go ahead and pay for the item, and we'll be sure to ship it out immediately. Thank you very much." Okay? Right? So very not abrasive at all. Just giving them a soft, gentle nudge to pay for it so I can ship it out, right? So that's probably good enough. I'm going to come down here and hit the send button. And my message has been sent. Okay. So now what do? I may have sent that message. I mean, it's been a couple of days since they bought it, so it's probably a good time to send a message at that point, and then once you've done it, wait another day or so for them to get back to you. And if they haven't gotten back to you at that point, then it's appropriate to then open up a case with the Resolution Center. Okay. How many of you guys have experience with the Resolution Center on eBay? You've opened up cases before or whatever. I'm just curious. I'm sure some of you guys have. Kirk asked, would giving them 48 hours seem fair? And that's definitely the right answer. I'd say give them a couple of days for sure. Isn't it just better? This is Rhonda here. Isn't it just better to check the Pay Now button? It is. So we're gonna discuss that because we can make a setting here that'll make it to where people are forced to actually pay you for it, or else it'll never show in your sold section, which is really nice to do. But that's only a feature that's good with Buy It Now. You can't really do that on an auction. So if you guys are ever running any auctions, it will happen that people win auctions and don't pay you for it. It happens a little less with Buy It Now it'll happen never with Buy It Now if you change that setting. So that's definitely something we can do. Yeah, it looks like everybody here is saying, yeah, definitely that they've had that experience. B, you're more charitable than most. You're saying you give people about a week, and that's fine too. Absolutely. There is a time limit though. I mean, because you have to get this issue resolved within about a month. Because if you don't, that in this case on this item that I sold, that $19.99, I'm going to get eBay is still going to charge me final value fees on this, which is 10%, right? So I'm going to get charged $2 as a final value fee from eBay on this specific sale. And if they never pay me, I should never get charged $2. So I have to report this to the Resolution Center and get it resolved officially with eBay first. So this is what I do usually. I come down here to more actions, and let me zoom in again. I know this is kind of small. Zoom in. Here we go. All right, here's the item again. I am going to go to more actions, and I am going to resolve a problem. Okay. And it'll take me right here to the Resolution Center. It says, tell us your issue with the transaction. And I've got two options. I sold an item and haven't received my payment yet. That sounds about right. Or I sold an item and want to cancel the transaction. We talked about canceling transactions a few weeks ago. You might use the I want to cancel a transaction if you ran out of stock or for some other reason couldn't fulfill the sale. You would try to cancel the transaction that way. But in this case, I want to select I sold an item and haven't received my payment yet. Okay? And then I hit continue. And then it's going to say, okay, well, is this the item right here? And I'm going to go ahead and hit submit, and it's going to send it to the Resolution Center. Now, I'm not going to do that right this second, only because I just barely sent them an email about it. So I'm not going to send it to the Resolution Center yet. When it gets sent to the Resolution Center, eBay takes over, and eBay tries to contact that buyer. They may send them a message and say, hey, you're supposed to pay for something. And then after a little bit of time, I can't remember the exact duration. It's about a week or so, week and a half. If they still haven't gotten the buyer to pay, you can go into the Resolution Center again, and you can cancel. You can close out the transaction, and then it's done. And then you're not going to get charged the final value fee. So that's the main issue here. If you guys get somebody who checks out but doesn't pay you, you're still on the hook for the 10% fee. You got to make sure you cancel it out officially here with eBay, okay? Let me come over. So I want to show you guys just the official tutorial on this in case you want to reference it. It's this address right here, and I'm gonna blow this up so you guys can maybe write it down. Let me just delete that out. Let me put it right here. Hopefully you guys can see that okay. This is it. Pages.ebay.com/help/sell unpaid-items.html. Okay, that right there is going to take you to the page we were just on a second ago. I'll wait for just a split second if you guys want to write it down. And even better yet, I'm going to send this to everybody. You guys should all get the link in the chat. Okay. If not, I mean, again, this is going to be recorded. You guys can check it out there. But it's going to take you to this page right here, what to do when a buyer doesn't pay. So we've kind of talked about, in practice, what to do. They suggest kind of the same thing. Talk to the buyer. Number 2, open a case in the Resolution Center. This is the link right here for the Resolution Center. It's resolutioncenter.ebay.com. So if you want to go check out the status of it, resolutioncenter.ebay.com is where you're going to go. Okay. Okay. So a couple of little technical, some specifics here that you need to look at. And these are important to know, so I want to just highlight these as we're talking. The first bullet point says, if you don't receive payment, you can open an unpaid item case, which is just what I showed you guys how to do, in the Resolution Center. And here's the important part, as soon as 2 full days after the listing ends. For example, if the listing ends on October 5th at 11:15 in the morning, you can open a case up on October 7th at 11:15 in the morning. Okay, so you have 2 days. So you can't just get in there and just open up a case in the Resolution Center right away. You got to wait 48 hours. Now, the caveat to that is, if it's the second bullet point right here, if the buyer is no longer registered on eBay, you can open a case immediately after the listing ends. That's pretty rare, so that's not something I'd worry too much about. Now, this is the point that I was talking about earlier. You know, B, you were charitable, giving that person about a week. Let's say you got extra charitable and you wanted to give them the entire month, right? Well, it says you can open a case up to 32 days after the listing has ended. So you have 32 days total to go and get this reported to the Resolution Center. If you just forget to do it and 32 days elapses, you're not going to get a reimbursement for your final value fees if that person doesn't pay you. So you should act pretty quickly. I don't think you should ever even be up against that 32-day threshold. But, you know, 2 days after or so, you should be sending the buyer a message, and then if nothing, then go ahead and open up the case. And then last but not least, it says the buyer has up to 4 days to send payment once you open the case. So I was wrong there, up to 4 days. During this time, the buyer can also contact you and request payment extension or to make other arrangements. Okay, so they have 4 days. After 4 days, you can close the case. And once you close the case, you definitely won't be getting that 10% fee. And that's why I gave you the link back to the Resolution Center, so you can go in there and check after 4 days. And you know, the interesting thing is, once I've reported something to the Resolution Center, people have paid me. So it's pretty effective to get paid sometimes if somebody just made an honest mistake and forgot to completely check out, or you know, their kid ran up to them while they were putting in their payment information and they got distracted and never finished the transaction. Like, stuff like that actually happens. So there's a chance you definitely will get paid. And then last but not least, number 3 here, closing the case. That's what we're talking about. I don't think I'm going to give you any other details there that you need to know about. Oh, this one's important right here. If the buyer doesn't pay, you need to manually close the case in the Resolution Center within 36 days after the listing ended in order to receive a final value credit or a final value fee credit. So you got to just stay on top of that. I hope you guys don't get too many of those issues, but there is a way to prevent it. And a couple of you guys have alluded to that already, where you can make your listings, if you do buy it now listings, you can make it to where somebody cannot buy an item without paying for it. And here's how you do it. Let me show that to you real quick. Okay, so say you're creating a listing, right? This is, I'm on a listing, like I'm making a new listing for myself right now. This page should be familiar to you guys if you've made listings. So I'm creating a listing. You know, I'm selling a pearl necklace. I'm going to put in my photo. I'm not going to do all of this right now, but let's assume that I'm filling out all the information on my listing here. and I get down here to where I choose a format and price, right? Okay, so this is where I'm going to put a price on my item. Now I can either choose a fixed price, or if you can see my mouse here, there's also an auction section. Unfortunately, if you run an auction, like there's no way to force payment. I mean, if somebody wins an auction, they're going to have a few days to pay. So if a lot of your listings are auctions and people are winning those auctions, you're going to run into a lot more unpaid cases than if you do fixed price, because fixed price, we can change a setting. Now I'll show you how to create this setting. You just come right up here to where it says add or remove options. I'm going to click on that link. I'm going to come right here to this payment sub option right here. And then I'm going to select this right here, require immediate payment through PayPal when a buyer uses Buy It Now. That's it. So that's how I protect myself if I've got a Buy It Now item. I don't give people an option. If you want to buy the item, you have to finish checkout and you have to pay me through PayPal, or else it'll never show up on my radar. And I love that. It just makes it really convenient. Now, why do we not just always do fixed price versus auction? I mean, you'll notice some of the coaches in the program, including myself, will tell clients to do auctions. And yes, auctions make you more susceptible to this kind of an issue, but they're cheaper, right? I mean, that's the big issue these days with eBay. Some categories that you do a fixed price listing will charge you 30 cents just to list the item, and that's problematic for some of you guys that are on a budget and are trying to keep things cheap, because 30 cents per listing adds up in a hurry. So a lot of times we teach you to do auctions because you get more free listings that way. So if you are doing Buy It Now, this is how you prevent it right here. Require immediate payment, hit save, and that setting will be done and set up for your listing, which is really, really nice. Especially if you've got a lot of listings, like you got hundreds of listings. Boy, it's nice to not have to deal with the resolution center all the time for unpaid item cases. It happens more than you might think. Okay, so hopefully, guys, that makes sense. I mean, my main purpose today was just to explain how to handle that the right way, because if it hasn't happened to you already, it will happen at some point in the future. I can guarantee that. Now, let me look through your questions real quick. Feel free to ask away, because we're just about ready to finish up. I'm not gonna. That's the scope of today's webinar. We're not going to go into any more detail. I just want to make sure you guys understood that point really well. Let's see. Okay, Vicky, let me read your question. What if they buy your item at the start of your listing? Do you really mean you do it after the listing is ended? Yeah, I think that's what it means. So if it's at the start of your 7-day duration, really only any of this applies after they've committed to buy it and the listing has been taken down. I don't know if that makes sense, but that's when all of the time frames start. Sam says, why doesn't eBay do the pay now option automatically on fixed price? Okay, so that's a great question. I don't know. I've thought about that myself. Why would eBay not just require that? And why does eBay have their internal setup so that you have to manually do this? You have to take it to the resolution center and manually go through this process before you're going to be reimbursed. The only thing I can think of is, eBay, when they see that somebody hasn't paid you officially through like PayPal or whatever, sometimes they assume maybe you were paid locally through like a check or something. And so by default, they're just always going to charge their final value fee, because that's how they get paid. eBay is like a $2 or $3 billion company right now, and they're a $2 or $3 billion company because they make so much money off of that 10% final value fee. So they just set it up to where they're going to get paid, and they put the onus on you to prove otherwise or show that the person didn't pay you. So I don't know. I don't know why they don't set it up automatically like that, Sam. But that's their policy. It would make a lot of sense to me. That's for sure. Okay. Well, guys, any other questions then for today? We're not going to cover anything else. I think this is plenty. I wanted to keep it short and sweet and to the point, and hopefully this has been instructive for you guys that have dealt with this a little bit. A lot of you I know have been handling it the right way, but it's good to cover it again. And for those of you guys who have never dealt with an issue like this, now you know, and you will handle it at some point. I can guarantee you that. Okay, I'm gonna leave my time open for just another minute. I'm gonna finish the recording though. So for